So, and yeah, so we're going to do an ask me, ask we, ask us anything. Oh, you have a question in the chat. Just if you'll share your SQL master file.
Yeah, let me.
People love that SQL master file. All the good stuff. I went I went out to get a glass of water. I didn't see the part where you imported those cool Star Wars guys. So I'm gonna have to see the master file too. There it is in the chat for everybody. And yeah, so Elizabeth, are you going to join us and whip the troops for our very last section? We'll do as much time as people have questions, and then we'll stop. And that might be 5 minutes. That might be 25 minutes.
So we have done absolutely zero planning for Ask Us Anything. So this is our first time doing it. I think probably the best thing to do is just to do questions in Q&A or chat. Yeah. And then Paul and Regina can just decide between themselves who wants to answer what. And then if there's no questions, which I can't imagine there won't be, I have some filler questions that we could talk about. But it looks like Paul and Regina, there's a couple of questions already in Q&A if you guys want to start there. And I'll just kind of hang back and let this go. And then, we'll wrap up at, towards the end of the hour.
Okay, so this to Sarah's question about moving to FGDC compliant, I have no idea what that is.
Federal Geographic Data Committee. I do not know what the Federal Geographic Data Committee standards are for address standardization, though. But there is a national standard. Probably the answer is there's not a great deal of hope for that because we kind of use the address standardizer as it stands and tweak it around the edges, not looking at like doing a major rewrite or major change to it. And then Roger says, I'm often on calls with sysadmins who lament that they've broken their Google implementations by doing some sort of system update. Yes, it's always yum update, and then things are broken. For people who are running Postgres on Linux systems, what are your recommendations for best practices around maintaining Google and GIS libs? So this would be for people who are running their enterprise production systems on the community builds. And more than any other part of the community builds, it feels like the dependency chain around PostGIS is the one that's most likely to get borked when the build maintainer decides to muck with them.
Yeah, I think that's a hard one.
Yeah, if you're going to insist on using community builds, the answer is like be very careful and keep close track of what you have and what's currently in the repository. And if what is in the repository has changed, wait for a while to see let someone else get run over by the truck instead. If you're interested in spending money on your installation, one of the things that our dear employer provides are builds which are fully integration tested all the way down soup to nuts. So we don't do that to our customers. If you're using the crunchy builds, they don't bork you when you do an update because we test them all the way to the end.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the Red Hat system is a mess. I mean, the Red Hat system is a mess because
this is general proposition.
Yeah, because everything in the primary is so old you can't use it, right? So you'd have to be constantly upgrading your OS to get the best. So Yum does package a lot of the GDAL. They build their own GDAL, but since GDAL is this, sadly, not the way that it extends is basically, compiling the dependency in. It has to pull from the other repos. And what I've noticed with the Red Hat ones is people forget like the EPO repo or I forget what they call it now. That is it EMG?
Oh,
so that's usually the problem that people run into and it's really it's usually a simple fix. It's like, just add this repo and you're done. The Ubuntu the Ubuntu Debian is a bit more complicated because there's the app PostgreSQL and they never ship GDAL or GIS. So depending on which system you're on, like if you decide to be sticking with Ubuntu 20, you're going to get an old GIS, right? That's just the way it is. And if you do something crazy, like try to upgrade or add another repo like Ubuntu GIS, which then gives you a different GDAL, you're going to run into problems. So it's mostly just mixing repos. That's the problem.
There's that. Yeah. So Cowboy repo management is a problem, but even if you just have a nice clean thing, standard plus EPEL plus Postgres community, you can still get borked. So yeah, so it's a big tiger trap, and you just have to not just assume that update is a free going to work for sure thing when you've got the community repos on it. Jeff Silberberg asks, given the volume of books on Locate Press, is there one? This Jeff Silberberg is cheap about books, I'm guessing. Is there one that you would recommend as a starting place for a newbie?
Yeah,
Regina?
it depends what kind of newbie you mean.
That's true. Yeah, database, post-spatial database newbie, GIS newbie. For GIS newbies, I'm always pointing people to the Gentle Introduction to GIS. Not a book, just a free workshop on the QGIS site.
Yeah.
Great way to get introduction to GIS concepts. Covering just a whole broad swath of different GIS concepts. Locate Press books. Hey, I mean, if you won't do it, I'll do it. You know, PostGIS in Action is there. There's a reason why it's the standard.
Yeah, although it's now old. And I feel like after a book is 2 years old, I don't.
We don't change things that much. It's additively,
Yeah, we don't change
it's
that.
additively out of date, but the old information
Yeah.
is not wrong.
Yeah, PG routing is definitely
Yeah.
everything has changed so much.
Reese asks, are we sticking to having users tack on : geometry when they want to use, or : geometry when they want to use a geography type for the bulk of regular functions? Yeah, I'm sticking to that.
Yeah, you should.
I don't
You should
want
be
the
explicit,
300 extra function definitions lying around, for better or worse. And the autocast mostly kind of magically works, I've found. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Wayne Howard asks, I frequently get strange results using the geometry viewer in pgadmin, I assume, and have simply needed to delete the viewer and reopen it. Is there a way to fix this?
You could probably complain, although I haven't been complaining, so I can't complain that I haven't been complaining. So yeah, they're usually pretty good about if you complain about something, trying to fix it.
Sounds like a big memory leak, doesn't it?
No, I was looking at the code. I was actually hoping to put in a PostGIS toolbox because I'm really pissed about that SHP to GUI.
Right.
So I wanted to put a toolbox panel in there, like, like how they have the backup and restore and it browses to replace the SHP to PGSQL GUI. And so it would just use SHP to PGSQL and PGSQL to SHP.
Yeah.
And so I was looking at the viewer, and it's because they keep the session of it for each run. So the way it usually gets screwed up is if you have you have a geometry that's 4326 and then you later to not having it geo-reference, it just screws up the map. So yeah, I always have to just close it out and then reopen it.
Baby and Nicolette asks, a few years ago, there was some research work done on using the GPU instead of CPU for PostGIS. Is this something relevant? It's not dead. PGStrom is still a live project. I've not actually heard anything from them in the last year or two. So it's not clear that they're necessarily doing a lot of work on the geospatial side. It's semi-relevant, but it's not super clear that there's a lot of leverage to be gotten from the GPU for a lot of the use cases. This is something I was asking my friends at Safe Software who do a lot of geometry processing, and they're always looking at the latest thing. And when people got very excited about GPUs about 5 years ago, they did some experiments to see, like, are there algorithms where going heavily parallel would be like big wins, and not enough of them were for them to take on the extra complexity, because that's the main thing you're paying for. Like, you're getting performance but not for free. The cost is the extra complexity of your code base to support this quite specific programming domain, because the programming domains end up being tied to particular chips. It's all very balkanized still. So I wouldn't want to get into it until it's like really standardized. And even when it's really standardized, it's not clear that a lot of our algorithms are ready to take a lot of advantage out of it.
Yeah. So the question, PostGIS up and running, is there going to be a 4th edition? And the answer is no, because O'Reilly said no, they don't want a 4th edition, even though it was a very popular book.
Oh,
But so that's why we're writing a no starch one, which is going to be bigger and it's taking us much longer to write. But yeah, so that would be kind of the continuation of the up and running. What would have been, well, not quite what would have been the 4th edition. The structure's changed quite a bit.
yeah. What's the best way to get huge geopackage shapefiles into PostGIS? I'm using Google Translate and the pgdump driver. I think you're probably the expert in this, Alec, unless Regina has something to say.
Yeah, I mean the geopackage, I don't know why you bother with pgdump. You can go straight to Postgres, right? You just go geopackage to Postgres. Why do you have this deep pgdump intermediary?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember whether the Postgres writer defaults to using copy or whether it defaults to using insert.
It defaults to copy nowadays, I think, in
Okay.
GL.
So yeah, in the olden days, it was possible that your Google was running with a kind of inefficient load pattern. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
Evan has updated it now, so it's always using copy. So it shouldn't be any slower than doing it. And then in terms of like shape files, there's nothing faster than shaped PGSQL. Although you do have to use that -D flag, the -big D flag.
Oh, I thought we got rid of that. We made it default.
We still default to inserts. We're done.
Oh, I thought we changed that. Are you sure we didn't change that?
It could just be that it's just
changed it.
muscle memory on my part.
Yeah, because I vaguely remember changing it in 3.3.
Okay.
Or maybe I was just imagining it.
I guess we all have our own. Yeah. Don't ask us anything we can't remember, and that's a lot of things.
Yeah, because the only thing that it couldn't do is when we did when you do -D, you can't use the transform because it was using the PostGIS transform.
Yeah. Oh,
so you couldn't do -D with that.
And we got a question at the bottom of the chat.
In the chat about PostGIS versions and performance and ST intersect. I don't know.
Yeah, I found on the web that ST intersect runs much faster starting with PostGIS 3.1. Is this true? It could very well be true. I'd have to go back and find the exact version in which this change went in, but definitely in the 3 series and probably around 3.1, we did a big renovation of the caching system, and that made things potentially way faster for spatial joins and ST intersects in particular, and kind of partially abrogated some of my advice about chopping stuff up. Chopping stuff up still actually is a performance boost, but it used to be like a 50 times performance boost, and now it's only like a 5 times performance boost. And that change was circa 3.1. So that could be what you're seeing is we started doing a much more aggressive caching right down at the object level that we weren't doing before. And it really had resulted in some serious performance improvements for particular loads. And then there's an implicit question that Elizabeth asked Steve, whether he started this whole PostGIS Day thing many years ago, and he did. He had the extremely bright idea that one should do an online PostGIS Day, and it turned out that he was entirely right. We had tried to do in-person PostGIS Days, and they were a little underwhelming, but online PostGIS Day has been such a huge success. I don't know when we'll stop. It's been really, really good. So thank you, Steve, for the bright idea of doing that and keeping it up as we moved online, because it's been fabulous.
I have a question that I should know the answer to because I work at a Postgres company, but I'm curious about a couple things. One is, how do you guys handle things that need to go into core Postgres and not PostGIS? And is there stuff that you're actively trying to get into core Postgres specifically for the purpose of being beneficial to the PostGIS project?
Yeah, the extension thing, I'm still trying to get
Mhm.
the simplification of extension to allow us to just have one script. And it's been stalled,
It's been stalled.
unfortunately.
It's been stalled. And it's a lot of it is because we are doing it wrong. Like we did
Yeah.
extensions wrong as far as the core
I
development
don't think we
team
did it wrong.
is. Well, they think we did it wrong.
They think we did it
And
wrong, but I don't think so.
yeah. And as a result, they're somewhat unwilling to take the patch that we want that would allow us to more easily manage our extension files. But our problem is only a problem to their mind because we did it wrong. So it's kind of like, but we can't change it. Like we can't go back in time and change it, and we cannot rewrite it to be correct without losing all of our backwards compatibility.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
unless
the
we
other
have
thing
like,
is there's no way for us to write it and support multiple versions of Postgres. You'd have to settle on
yeah,
Postgres 17 is going to ship with 3.5 and that's it. And we're not going to
mhm,
support, from 12 to whatever that we're supporting,
yeah,
or
and
13 to whatever.
has a lot to do with the core development team's lack of imagination with respect to how extensions were actually going to work once they existed, which is that for large extensions like us, Timescale, there's a few others that have like their own versioning schemes. It is possible to have multiple extension versions in the same database, and that just opens up a whole bunch of different questions that the correct way of doing things don't address.
Yeah, because Postgres is a moving target too. So the way you have to do things is different depending on the versions. The things you can expose, like different index types, is different. You can expose more with a newer Postgres than you can with older.
Question for you, Regina. Since you mentioned you thought it was already old from Wayne Howard, are you planning a 4th edition of PostGIS in action?
That one I might, but it's not old enough. Like Paul said, things haven't changed so much that it's not to the point where I think, God, this is so old. It's not quite at that point. And there's supposed to be a Russian version of it coming out.
Okay.
With I think the Postgres Pro people are involved in that. So that'll be interesting. That'll be kind of exciting to have a copy of my book in Russian. So I'm still waiting for that.
Okay. Well, we'll look forward to it. All the new things can be in there. At least there's no bad advice in the old versions. The questions are slowing down. Last chance.
Thanks for, that it's quite current. I think that most of the stuff that's actually changed is on the Postgres side. No, even that. Yeah, I guess it was a good point to release the 3rd edition because all the major things had come out. And Postgres just added more functions, which you can find in the manual.